With missile launches, border shelling, and rising diplomatic alarms, South Asia stands at a dangerous crossroads. As India and Pakistan escalate their posturing after the Pahalgam attack, fears of a wider conflict and its economic fallout are growing fast. Here's your full roundup. Pakistan has successfully conducted the training launch of its Fateh missile, a short-range surface-to-surface weapon with a 120-kilometer range. This marks the second major missile test in a week, following Saturday's Abdali launch. Both tests were part of Exercise Indus, aimed at validating operational readiness and navigation upgrades. Chairman Joint Chiefs General Zahir Shamshad Mirza and Army Chief Asim Munir supervised the launch, while President Zardari and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif hailed it as proof that Pakistan's defense is in strong hands. Meanwhile, across the border, India is preparing civilians for what it calls emergency readiness. India will conduct nationwide mock civil defense drills this Wednesday, involving evacuation exercises, air raid sirens, and blackout simulations. The Ministry of Home Affairs says this is routine preparedness, but observers link the timing to mounting military rhetoric and fears of a regional confrontation. Deputy PM and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has accused India of choreographing the Pahalgam attack to deflect from its internal issues and human rights abuses in Kashmir. Speaking at the Regional Dialogue 2025, he warned of dangerous instability and called for a UN Security Council session, which Pakistan is now officially requesting.
Why they have done it? I just given you an example of Pulwama. I'm not saying this, I don't have evidence, but analysts say this could be another ploy. It might have been self-choreographed. How come in 10 minutes the FIR is registered at a police station where you need to at least 45 minutes ride to reach?
The move comes after PM Shehbaz Sharif met UK High Commissioner Jane Marriott, inviting Britain to join a neutral probe and play a role in de-escalation efforts. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, in Islamabad this week, echoed Pakistan's stance, saying Iran supports regional peace and condemns India's unilateral decisions.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. سفر من امروز به پاکستان سه هدف اصلی داره. یکی بررسی آخرین وضعیت در
कि मेरे दौरे पाकिस्तान के दौरान नायब वज़ीर आज़म मोहम्मद इसाक डार से 3 बुनियादी निकात पर बात हुई है, जिनमें खित्ते की मौजूदा सूरत हाल, खुसूसन पहलगाम वाक़े के बाद पाकिस्तान और भारत के ताल्लुकात शामिल है। पाकिस्तान हमारा पड़ोसी, बरादर मुल्क और बेहतरीन दोस्त है। हमने खित्ते की सूरत हाल के बारे में पाकिस्तान के तफसीली मौक़िफ़ से आगाही हासिल की है। मैंने अपने पाकिस्तानी हम मनसब को ईरान, अमरीका के दरमियान जारी मुज़ाकरात के बारे में आगाह किया।
China, too, has reaffirmed its support, calling Pakistan an ironclad brother and backing its call for a neutral investigation. On the ground, Pakistan is also challenging Indian narratives head-on. Information Minister Atullah Tarer led local and foreign journalists, including CNN's Nick Robertson, to disputed locations near the line of control. These are sites India claimed housed militant training camps allegedly linked to the Pahalgam attackers. Terror called the claims baseless, adding that there are no terror camps, just villages and mountains. Meanwhile, cross-border firing has intensified in Nakheel, Sharda, Kel, and Haji Pir, with the Pakistan Army responding befittingly. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned on Monday that India-Pakistan relations have reached a boiling point. While condemning the Pahalgam attack, he stressed that accountability must come through credible, lawful means, not military aggression.
And so it pains me to see relations reaching a boiling point. I understand the raw feelings following the awful terror attack in Pahalgam on 22 April. I once again strongly condemn that attack and extend my condolences to the families of the victims. Targeting civilians is unacceptable, and those responsible must be brought to justice through credible lawful means.
The UN Security Council is expected to hold a closed-door session to address the crisis, following Islamabad's formal request. Guterres said both nations must exercise maximum restraint, warning that any military confrontation could easily spiral out of control.
It is also essential, especially at this critical hour, to avoid a military confrontation that could easily spin out of control. Now is the time for maximum restraint and stepping back from the brink.
Global ratings agency Moody's has warned that the escalating standoff may derail Pakistan's fragile economic recovery. While noting recent improvements like easing inflation and an IMF program in motion, it cautioned that sustained conflict could hinder fiscal consolidation, restrict external financing, and reduce water supply after India's suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty. Pakistan's central bank has cut its policy rate to 11%, slashing it by 1,100 basis points since June. The move reflects a dramatic drop in April inflation, just 0.3%, driven by cheaper food and fuel. The state bank says core inflation is also easing, and business confidence is rising. But the economy could face fresh turbulence if water becomes the next battlefield. India has started sediment flushing operations at its Salal and Baglihar dams on the Chenab River, without informing Pakistan, marking a significant breach of the Indus Waters Treaty. The timing is crucial. It comes after India suspended the treaty following the Pahalgam attack. Pakistan says the move amounts to a provocation, and some officials have even called it an act of war. Pakistan is preparing to take the matter to international legal forums, including the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. With the world watching, the next steps taken by New Delhi and Islamabad could shape the region's future, for better or for worse. At least 8 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on a vehicle near the Nuseirat refugee camp in central Gaza. The Palestinian Information Center reports that several others were injured in the attack. Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza fear what they describe as a second Nakba as Israel signals intentions to expand its military campaign. Families in central Gaza say they face the same horrors their ancestors endured in 1948: displacement, starvation, and indiscriminate killing. In the broader region, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of trying to draw the U.S. into a wider conflict, warning of consequences if any action is taken against Iran. His remarks followed Netanyahu's threats to strike Iran following a missile attack on Israel. In the Netherlands, 5 pro-Palestine protesters were arrested during a World War II liberation memorial in Wageningen. Around 250 demonstrators marched with signs condemning the war on Gaza and an 80-meter red banner symbolizing the Dutch government's failure to act against Israeli aggression. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking in Prague, said a ceasefire with Russia could begin at any moment and called for greater international pressure on Moscow. He criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin for ignoring a US-backed ceasefire proposal and insisted that only sustained pressure could compel Russia to act. Zelensky is pushing for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire to allow diplomacy a real chance, dismissing Moscow's limited 3-day truce plan as symbolic and ineffective. During his visit, Zelensky praised the Czech-led ammunition initiative that has delivered over 1.6 million rounds to Ukraine and aims for 1.8 million more in 2025. Czech President Petr Pavel backed Zelensky's call, stating that Putin alone holds the power to end the war. Meanwhile, tensions remain high on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces reportedly launched a cross-border attack into Russia's Kursk region, according to Russian war bloggers, who described missile strikes, destroyed bridges, and heavy fighting near 𝐃𝐚𝐰𝐬. Ukraine's military also reported shooting down 42 of 116 drones launched by Russia overnight. Despite the defense efforts, the regions of Sumy and Donetsk were hit, and Russia fired 2 ballistic missiles that were not intercepted. Civilian impact assessments are still pending.